Good morning. I'm here with Ms. Barbara Interzelli here for the AP United States History Vietnam Interview Project. How are you?
Hi, Sydney. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I'm going to go through just some questions about the Vietnam War and see what it was like for you during that time. So how old were you during the Vietnam War?
I was 18 years old. I had just graduated from high school, and the war was in full force. It was, a very big deal. It had a very big impact on me personally. I happened to be dating someone, and we were very serious, and he was going over there to fight, and he was a Marine, so it was very stressful for me and his family at that time.
So when you think about the war, what is the first memory that comes to mind?
Well, the Daily Times was the newspaper that really focused on the war. And every day they would, when you got the paper, they would have someone that unfortunately was killed over there. So that newspaper had a very big impact because that was a big deal, of course. And most of these guys were only 18, 19 years old that were over there. And I had a friend, and he was a very good friend of my ex-husband, who was killed, and I think he was only there about 8 days. So it was very, very sad. It was sad for his family. So it really shed light on the seriousness of the war.
Were there any bands, artists, or songs you can remember being influential as the time went on? Like, was anyone starting to talk about this artist or band coming up being as open and rebellious to the war?
No, not that I can recall.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Now, did these media outlets strengthen the way you thought, or did they kind of change the way that you perceived the war?
Well, you were just hoping that what they were communicating was truthful. That was what was in question. Do they really know what's going on, or where did they get that information from? Yeah. As an adult, you've realized that back then you hung on all their words. Yeah. But as I said, looking back, I think, gosh, did they really know what was going on, or who was feeding them all that information? I had the opportunity to travel to Hawaii in 1968. They had what's called R&R for a lot of the troops that were eligible for a 30-day leave. So I somehow managed to convince my parents to let me go because I was getting engaged at the time. So my father finally decided to let me go to Hawaii. I was 19 and by myself. And we were to report to a room where all the wives and significant others and their children were, but they had no idea whether or not their husband, their loved one, their fiance was even going to be there. Because, as I said, we didn't have the technology that we do today. We didn't have the cell phones. We didn't have any information. And that's a long trip from Pennsylvania to California and then on to Hawaii. Yeah. So it was very heartbreaking to see a lot of these women and girlfriends that their husbands never made it. They never came. So it was, again, a real eye-opener at age 19 to see that death is a natural occurrence at that time. And I was fortunate enough that my fiance made it, and we spent 4 or 5 days in Hawaii, so that was wonderful. It was just, just such a welcoming place to know that, that he had survived. But as I said, reality had set in when you see a lot of these women, crying and hysterical because their husbands and fiancés never made it.
One final question. If you could leave one final piece of advice for anyone in that time surrounding the war, what would it be? Whether it be to a soldier, to any politician, or to a citizen going through?
you just really have to have so much respect for our veterans. And I'm so happy that through the years, I think there has been more things done to help our veterans. It's just very critical that they provide them with the better health care and just take better care of the veterans, because again, unless you experience it or know someone or had a family member that went to fight for the war, you have no idea the sacrifice that they are making. It's just such a tremendous sacrifice for our country. So everyone has to really support our veterans.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down for this interview with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering all these questions. It was very, very eye-opening to know even not knowing exactly what they went through, but what the loved ones would go through back home. Just the constant worrying and the uncertainty.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.